It's been over 2 months since the release of 1.7, and I think it is time we talk about the update. The major change in patch 1.7 is the 25% increase in DPS for infantry. This increase is mainly done by increasing the accuracy stats, mainly for the early game units, such as paratroopers, panzergrenadiers, and grenadiers. This is a straightforward and effective method for boosting DPS. However, units with high accuracy stats and those designed for CQC like Tommies and Riflemen only receive a minor increase in accuracy, but they also get other buffs. Tommy receive 2 additional damage per shot to compensate for the lower accuracy increase, and the Riflemen receive 22% cooldown reduction. It is important to know that many factors impact a unit's DPS. Essentially, the estimated DPS is the product of the damage per bullet, the unit's fire rate, and the unit's accuracy. Other variables such as armor, covers, debuffs, or damage reduction can also affect DPS, but we will focus on these 3 stats for simplicity. The accuracy and the damage per bullet are straightforward. There are chance of a shot to land and the damage dealt if the shot lands. However, the number of shots per second or the unit fire rate is determined by stats such as animation time, aim time, cooldown duration, and reload duration. If it is a burst weapon, then burst fire rate and burst duration also need to be considered. Each of these stats is a dice roll between its minimum and maximum values. They also have different multiplier depending on the engagement distance of the unit. So, what does this all mean? When infantry model engages in combat, the RNG and engagement distance affect how fast the model can shoot. The model needs to perform the animation and aim before firing. After a shot is fired or a burst is finished, the weapon has to be cooled down for a period of time. The model repeats this process until the weapon reaches the maximum number of cooldowns, and then the model performs a reload. This process determines how long it takes to empty a magazine, which can be used to estimate the weapon's effective fire rate. Now that we know what affects the DPS of a unit, let us get back to the patch note. The goal of the increase in DPS in patch 1.7 is to emphasize positioning in the early game, which worked well as Relic intended. However, this change also has another implication. Blobbing has become more effective due to the shorter TTK. Before we get deeper, let's discuss why we blob. The goal of blobbing is to reach a critical mass where the blob can inflict a significant amount of burst damage. An infantry blob can quickly drop enemy's unit's model when it reaches critical mass. An infantry blob reaches a critical mass when it can finish off an enemy model in a single volley fire. Each model in a squad is an entity with its own damage and HP. Losing a model reduces the squad's effectiveness by 17 to 25% depending on the squad size. As the squad loses models, they also inflict less damage as fewer guns are shooting at the moment. A main line typically has between 80 to 100 HP and varies in DPS due to different stats and upgrade options. This means each type of infantry requires a different number of squads to reach the critical mass depending on the factors such as upgrades, engagement distance, and the stats. For instance, a 3 Tommies blob would beat the Panzer Grenadier's blob at max range every time. But if the Panzer Grenadier can close up the distance, then it is the other way around. Let us look at what happens if we have more units than the critical mass. We are going to use dummies in the demonstration. With 100 HP per model and taking 14 damage per shot, the Panzer Grenadier squad starts losing a model after the third volley. This means a 3-squad blob is enough to finish off an enemy model in the first volley and start gaining the advantage as the enemy units become less effective. Adding another squad into the blob would result in an overkill. Similarly, if we picked the plunder ability in the espionage battle group and managed to plunder 2 LMGs for our Panzer Grenadiers, then we only need 2 squads of Panzer Grenadier to reach the critical mass. Also, there are other mechanics that limit blobbing, such as population, upkeep, and reinforcement cost. The maximum population capacity is 100 per player. Each unit costs a specific amount of population, and upkeep depends on the unit's up cost and upkeep multiplier. The upkeep multipliers are 1.0 for support infantry, 1.25 for mainline infantry, 1.5 for elite infantry and light vehicles, 1.75 for medium tanks, and 2.0 for heavy tanks and premium medium tanks. Reinforcing a squad with dead models also consumes manpower, and blobs with high model count are more expensive to reinforce. Overall, the increase in TTK makes it easier to blob because it takes one less squad to reach the critical mass. Now, it may sound negative, but the increase in accuracy is actually a positive change. The accuracy adjustment rewards good positioning and punishes poor engagement. In my opinion, the TTK needs to be increased either by increasing model HP or decreasing infantry bullet damage or fire rate. This is because players must invest significant amount of resources to build up and maintain a blob, so the blob should still reflect the investment in terms of damage output. However, as it stands, reaching critical mass is too easy, and requiring one additional squad to achieve the critical mass would increase the risk of blobbing. Blobbing has become the most effective strat as a result of the shorter TTK. Let me know what you think about the 1.7 TTK in the comment. Bye!